Look around and it's easy to feel pinned down. We live in a turbulent era, constantly bumping into invisible walls, the rules, expectations, and rigid frameworks of our daily lives. Breaking out of that box requires looking in an unexpected place, an ancient text that, at first glance, reads like a dry municipal land registry, the 15th chapter of the book of Joshua. Look past the bureaucratic language and you find a record of massive upheaval. A newly formed nation was violently carving its future out of a hostile landscape. These people faced a practical problem. Drawing a boundary line on a piece of parchment did nothing to hand them physical ownership of the dirt beneath their feet. A map represents potential, but maps are not the land itself. Bridging the gap between a written promise and physical reality requires the kind of action that forces a line on a page to become occupied territory. This map shows how potential was distributed. Judah was initially granted a massive territory in this southern section. The opening verses of Joshua 15 act as a strict surveyor's ledger, tracing the exact uncompromising perimeter of Judah's intended society. These rolling hills and distant valleys were far from empty. The land within these borders was packed with brutal physical barriers and well-entrenched enemies. Later in the chapter, verses 20 through 63, rattle off a long catalog of cities. Yet recording those names was a passive exercise. Dislodging the current inhabitants and actually conquering those settlements was a deadly offensive. Claiming a vast historic promise requires standing directly in front of localized, specific resistance and choosing to move forward. In the middle of this dry, tribal administration, the text pauses to isolate a single individual, a man named Caleb. Caleb was a Kenizzite, a man of non-Israelite origin who had chosen to wholly dedicate his life to Yahweh. This outsider perspective shaped his resolve. He refused to sit quietly and wait for an inheritance to be handed to him through bureaucracy. Instead, he stepped forward with a specific, bold demand. He asked for the region of Hebron, claiming a promise that had been made to him decades earlier. His faith was proactive. He looked at a paper promise and decided to turn it into an immediate physical demand. Hebron is a severe geographical environment, a rugged, high-altitude mountainous region defined by deep desert canyons and sharp ridges. The area was locked down by military obstacles. It was protected by heavily fortified strongholds with massive, sheer walls that had successfully deterred other leaders. Caleb weighed the intimidating visual evidence of the terrain against the promise he held and launched his offensive. He trusted the guarantee more than he feared the mountains. The result was decisive. He broke through the defenses, conquered the territory of Hebron, and physically occupied the land. True faith is the physical courage to step directly into the path of your most intimidating obstacles and systematically dismantle them. Joshua chapter 15 is a declaration of applied faith. Beyond the names of towns and survey markers, the text captures the exact moment where theory was forced to meet the ground. Caleb's refusal to accept the safe, easy route resulted in the ultimate payoff. By taking the difficult ground, he secured the most dazzling and valuable inheritance of his entire generation. Caleb's movement across this landscape provides a model for navigating our own chaotic era. His example suggests that even the most rigid frameworks can be expanded through decisive action. Caleb's victory began with a petition. He walked up to the leadership and demanded what he was promised. Today, we are invited to act with that same boldness, seeking the wisdom needed to break through the personal frameworks that hold us back. Breaking a framework is never comfortable, but when we act with that kind of relentless courage, we secure an abundance of blessings that far exceed our original expectations.